So, so far in the last video, we have just generalized the concept of class and objects. In this video, I'm going to argue that everything that you see in Python or worked with is actually an object. I have only one assumption that you're already comfortable with data types like string, float, integers, um, and data structures like list, dictionaries, tuple. I'm assuming you already worked with this, or at least you have some basic idea about it, not too much. Okay, so if you ever already worked with Python or you're just trying to understand class and objects, just type a number. Like, let me type a number like, say, 4, and let me store it in a variable called 4. Now, if you just thought this is a number, it is not. It is actually of a class called integer, which means any object like that resembles like this is actually belonging to the class called integer. So I can just print it out for you, so that Python says the same thing. So if you say that, Python says, hey, I belong 4 here is an object, right? Like this, like when I say class is a combination of attributes and methods that are predefined. When you're creating 4 is like saying, hey, I'm belonging to the class called integer. So how about I create -4? Is it the same thing? Now, okay, let's, for simplicity, let's create -8. Now we just type y, you have integer again, and if you just see what's happening, so you got an integer again, um, and it says the y also belongs to class called integer, and you know integer takes anything between -infinity to +infinity. So now this is being labeled as integer. Let's test another data type called float. Like, what exactly float takes? Float takes anything with decimal, right? So 1.5. So if you just type the value of this, it says float class, which means any object that is in the form of like this number and is a decimal, it is actually belonging to the float class. So grasp that intuition that as you're typing something in Python, like they should definitely belong to some class. They have to belong. So if you're just typing a name, like you're just typing your name, saying that Peter Griffin, right? And if you're just trying to get which class it belongs to, or if you're not into this mindset, start thinking that whenever you're creating something, hey, I'm creating an object of a certain class. Don't think that you're creating a variable. Think of it like I'm creating, even though you're creating a variable technically here, but think as if that you are creating an object that belongs to a certain class. And as you code, you might literally understand that if that is a string, if I'm typing a string, that belongs to a string class. If I'm typing a decimal placed values, they belong to a float class. If you just type an integer, that belongs to integer class. So to prove your point, to prove this point, I'm just gonna use one, like some simple data structure. So I'm just gonna create a list. I'm gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this seems like a simple list, but if you just type, get the type of it and see what's inside it, it says it belongs to a class called list. Now if you just do the same thing for tuple, like I'm just making things up, 34, just got an extra comma. So I'm just printing what is that tuple saying. It says tuple. Let's create a dictionary, which is, I think, the hardest of all data structures when typing. So let me just go with name. I'm gonna say it's Peter Griffin, and what's his age? Age is like 24. So what is this called? This belongs to class called dict. Key takeaway here is that anything that you type or anything that you do on Python is literally you're creating an object of a certain class. Underline this word, object will definitely belong to a certain class. And what does a class have? Class has a predefined attributes and methods. Now let's look into these data types and data structures, what's inside them. It's very simple. All you can use, like, just print, there's a function called directory which will expose all of things. So I'm just trying to see what's inside the int class. Oh, if you look at it, this one seems pretty okay. Okay, let me open it in an editor. If you look at here, what I said, class will have attributes and it has methods. So anything, if you scroll down a little bit, see, all these are methods. So let's say you could have never seen what's inside integer. Definitely, I'm pretty sure nobody could have. Let's use list, because by one way or the other we could have worked with list. So let's get comfortable here. If you look at here, you could have already used this one pretty easily. So this is like a method that specifically belongs to list class, and it acts only on list objects. List objects, I mean objects that actually like this. It only acts on this, right? And when it's acting on it, it's going to utilize the attributes, which are like the data points or data that is there, and it's going to act on them. So alert. So what about these then? These are called dunder methods. Don't be scared by the name. Like, they're called dunder because they have double underscore in front of them, and they are just like methods, like regular methods with one small capability, which is like dunder methods like are literally the methods that actually define the behavior of an object. So if you were to type it, so these are like the methods are methods that are starting with double underscore, and these methods define the behavior of the objects. This will be part of our series of videos from class in Python. So for now, just try to understand that this will define a behavior of objects, or or you can say like behavior of certain built-in functions, or like built-in operations. So you'll understand in a bit. Built-in operation like addition, subtraction, and multiplication, type conversion, and so on. If this seems slightly intimidating, don't worry. I'm going to just show you an example of how exactly this one works. But the takeaway here is that you shouldn't ignore this, because as you're developing yourself into a programmer, you'll be definitely creating dunder methods, or you'll be using the dunder methods in your classes that you're going to create. So these are the methods that are unavoidable, right? But if you're not at this very now, if you're not determined in a single line, these dunder methods are like methods that actually define the behavior of certain built-in operations like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and type conversion, like, and so on and so forth. So let us do one. Like, let us actually use a dunder method to actually you know what, before that, let's go to integers first. So we have created two integers, x and y, right? Like, what is x? X is 4 and y is 8, right? So how to add them? Very simple. X plus y, and you get the result, which is -4, because the greater one has a bigger sign. I mean, bigger one has the negative sign. Behind the scenes, when you're actually doing the operation on integer class, what's happening there is this. What's happening there is it is taking x and it is calling that dunder method. Like if you notice in the integer, integer has got a dunder method called, definitely it has got a dunder method that says add. Yeah, here, right there. So now when you're adding two integers, what you're technically saying is, I'm gonna just open it to the just open it to the right. uh, and I'm gonna just show you this. So when you're adding two integers, you literally mean that I'm gonna call this, and like behind the scene, this is what happening. When you say like, hey, I want to add two integers, like you're saying that the integer class interprets as like, okay, he's calling a dunder method. Okay, let's call a dunder method. Behind the scenes, it's called this, and it's gonna sorry. See, you get the same response. So you can play with all these, like you have something called GT. I think it's comparing two things, right? If you want to compare x greater than y, you get a true or false. Yeah, because it's positive, right? If you do the same thing, if you like GT, I think I'm assuming, but GT of y, you get true, right? So all these are like methods that actually act upon certain operations of that class. They actually define certain operations of this class. So behind the scenes, when you're actually doing this, when you're actually doing certain sub operations, they're actually these are actually being called upon called inside the class. More on this in the coming videos. For now, let's stick to the thing that a class, once you open up a class, you will see dunder methods plus their inbuilt methods. So I'm not gonna go and stretch to the lengths this video, but you get the essence of the video, that you can literally say that everything in Python is an object, and when you open up it, the class that it belongs to, you will find dunder methods and inbuilt methods of that particular class. So let's do one last thing, which is let's try to act upon some of these inbuilt methods. For example, 2 bytes. Let's say what it does is, um, it returns like 2 bytes is like an inbuilt method. I mean, I'm pretty sure you could haven't used this one, but let's see what it does. So what it does is it returns an array of bytes representing the integer. You specify the length and byte order. So what it does, let's see. You have like a integer 1024, like I'm just saying, and if you wanna print, if you wanna represent it like in bytes, so what it does is you say 2 bytes, you call that method, and you're gonna say how much you wanna, like, how are you gonna say, are you gonna use it to be like big or small, how are you gonna represent it. So this output, this one outputs something like this. So this says that I'm gonna convert a regular integer to representation of a byte order. So this is how you can represent 1024. So all these are like pretty much inbuilt methods. I know like we are not comfortable with this, but if you're gonna do one for a list, you can consider doing popping. So let's pop out some of the elements from the lists, right? So L1 is like a list. L1 dot pop. So it popped the last one element, right? So if you wanna pop, I think you can pop up to a certain index. Let's say you wanna pop 1, let's say 2. Okay, I think pop is a method, so you cannot go and index it. Just now, if you just type L1, you only got 2, 3, 4. You literally popped this one out. So if you want to pop, or if you want to append to it saying that I want to append 2, and if you want to type L1. So what exactly is this one doing? All these methods are acting upon this object, right? Is it acting upon this L1 using some attributes that you're providing. So you are saying that I want to remove something or I want to add something. So this is actually the data that you're trying to include or remove from this object. So that's how you actually understand Python, the object oriented. Oops, I mean, like everything that you do in Python is actually object oriented. So everything is an object, and every object has to be tied down to a certain class, and every class will have attributes, methods, and if you want to be very specific, some dunder methods. Don't be scared by dunder methods. You have to work with it as you're building yourself as a Python programmer. So in the next video, I'll be actually talking about this particular thing. You say this is object, but at the same time we call it as a variable. So there is actually an interesting concept in Python called names and objects that will actually clarify that every variable is actually a pointer to that object. So I'll simplify in the next video. That's it for this video. See you in the next video.